they're telling me the name James. Does the name James mean anything to you? Or a name that has a J, G, Ja sound to it? Does this sound familiar? Well, this is a telltale sign of someone who is a fake psychic medium working the room doing a cold reading. And this is what we're diving into this week. So come join me as we delve into the world of psychic mediums by investigating the claims of John Edwards, a self-proclaimed psychic who gained massive following worldwide by speaking to the dead. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Florio. Welcome to the channel. Now, as for psychics, I've decided to do a whole series. Those of you that are familiar with my channel know that I've done a big Warren series that we're still working on. And I decided, you know what, we're going to just do a big psychic series because I got asked to do videos on a ton of psychics. You guys have given me tons of names. So we have a lot of people to cover, really. But first, the Sylvia Browne video, the comments were good. There was good comments, and there was wild comments. So, you know, the thing is, a lot of the people that commented, I don't think watched the video, but if they're happy to watch this one, I'll just make it clear. The reason why I'm doing videos on grifters in the paranormal industry, whether they're alive or dead, it doesn't matter. They defrauded people and people still hold them on a pedestal. So, you know, we're just trying to make sure everyone's aware of what's going on, because there's people that still hold a lot of these people up high even after they've passed on. And why we should care? Well, people that are in this industry, they're taking advantage of people that are grieving, families that are in crisis, people that are in crisis as well. So it's important for us to like out this sort of stuff and talk about it, you know, because yeah, you can say, oh, I see comments like, oh, people are dumb for falling for this stuff. They're not dumb. They're just in a bad spot in life and they're turning to the wrong type of person who just wants to rip them off and make money off of them. And people are not delusional for having belief in something. It doesn't really matter what you believe in. And why I do this, you know, it's important for us to talk about history, because if we don't talk about it, and if we don't kind of go over mistakes of the past, we're bound to keep repeating them. There's a reason why we learn about history in school, and there's a reason why we should always look back on it. And just because someone is passed on doesn't mean that they get an instant get out of jail free card, that they never get to be spoken about poorly. If they've done bad things while they were alive, then we're going to talk about it. But I do like having discussions with y'all, reasonable discussions. So feel free to leave a comment below at any point in the video. And, you know, I'll love to hear from you. Just a reminder, I grew up in this industry. I'm not saying I don't believe, I'm just a skeptical believer. However, once I figure out someone is grifting, then yes, I will be cynical to that person. My wording in this video will be cynical. There's nothing to be skeptical about when it comes to fake mediums. That is, once we learn to spot a faker, and that's what I'm going to be teaching you about today.
Oh, goodness, what's going on? We're having a telekinetic battle event. Enough!
Oh, also, before we begin, John Edwards always says he encourages skeptics to analyze him. So don't feel bad for him as we do so in this video. You all know my position already, but don't let my terminology sway you. Look at the information and make a decision for yourself at the end of this video. Oh, one last thing. I had to wait till we are a few minutes in. A little game for those of you who actually watch my videos. FYI, I can tell when someone hasn't watched the video and they leave a comment. And there's a ton of that in the Sylvia video. It's filled with all these comments of people who clearly didn't watch the video. So for fun, I want you to leave a comment below and tell me, what is your favorite food? It's a silly little game. Play along if you like, and maybe we'll get to witness some utter confusion by those other folks in the comments who don't actually watch the video. John Edwards' origins. John Edward, born October 19, 1969, in Glen Cove, New York. His father was a police officer and mother a secretary. A side note, go watch the TV show Psych. I wonder if they based that show off of John Edward. Being raised by a police officer who teaches you how to read people would come in quite handy for a fake psychic / mentalist.
Headquarters, I suddenly and miraculously have a vision. What am I seeing? 8, 3, 1. Well, how at 138? Exactly, in the spirit world, things get jumbled and out of sequence.
Edward was raised Roman Catholic, and although he later stopped practicing, he stated that he has never stopped feeling connected to God and his Catholic roots. Edward is quoted as saying, "This is something that is driven by belief in God. It's the energy from that force that I think allows us to create this energy. When he was 15, John received a reading from a New Jersey woman who convinced him that he could become a medium. Regarding that interaction, he is quoted as saying, "She told me things that there's no way she could have known. And the first part of the reading was that this was the path I was supposed to be on, and that I was supposed to be a teacher and help people. And I thought she was nuts." John would eventually begin working in healthcare as a phlebotomist, which is just a person who takes your blood, while he was pursuing a degree in healthcare administration at Long Island University. He met his wife, Sandra McGee, when he was a student in a dance studio, and he actually became a ballroom dancing instructor for a time. He and his wife have a son and daughter. Their second child, Olivia, is also an actress now. Psychic career. In 1998, John published his first book, One Last Time, and he appeared on Larry King Live later in the year to promote the book. His appearance on the show caused the switchboard to become overloaded with calls, thus paving the path for John to have a show of his own, which would go on to be called Crossing Over with John Edward. From 2001 to 2004, Crossing Over would have John do psychic readings for a studio audience. John Edward built a reputation as a medium at a time when psychics on TV were beginning to fall from their peak. Edward's show, Crossing Over, created a new blueprint for psychic mediums to continue their grift without being outed by future predictions not coming true. This set the stage for all the future and current psychic mediums we even see today on YouTube, TikTok, and even some have gotten TV shows now. As you can already tell by my words, many people have been skeptical about John Edward's abilities, and it's not hard to see why. Claims of being able to speak with the dead are always too good to be true, and his methods, which we can all witness together, are very clearly just parlor tricks that use techniques like cold and hot reading to manipulate grieving audience members who are already struggling emotionally and don't necessarily have all their wits about them. So they begin to buy into this illusion of a genuine communication with their deceased loved ones. Edward is nothing more than a skilled performer who preys on the vulnerable and grieving. Despite all the criticism, Edward, as with many fake psychics, was still able to cultivate a loyal following and convince people that he was the real deal. People who believe these fake psychics always point to the countless testimonials that claim to have received accurate readings. Edward sometimes provides a bit too specific details that seem impossible for him to know. But this isn't a sign that he's psychic. No, there's something more at play here, which we will get to. Now, I'm sure there's many of you who have already started typing your angry comments below, but for those of you still watching who are on the fence, or those of you that are just interested, let me try to explain to you how these fake psychic / mentalists do their magic, because this is magic. After all that, we will delve more into the controversies of John Edward and some interesting things that I want to show you. But before we jump into Fake Psychic 101, let me just end off this intro to John Edward with some clips found by Holy Kool-Aid, which he's a really good channel. Go follow him if you haven't done so yet. He's also got a website for those skeptic watchers of mine that link to a bunch of skeptic websites, YouTube channels, things like that. He's actually got a lot of really good resources. I really like his channel.
The person that passed with the overdose, what's the relationship specifically to you?
My father.
Your dad. Okay. Does he have a brother who's also passed?
No.
Yes, he does.
He only has a sister.
There's another male that's with your dad on the same level. There's a J or G connection to that family.
His wife.
Would be the J or G?
Yes.
Does she have the brother figure who's passed?
No.
There is a male contemporary to your dad on the same level. So if this is your father, you either have a father-in-law, an uncle, there's another male that's on that same level that's there.
I can't think of any.
Sure you do. I got all night.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
He has a sister.
Okay.
And
Unless she has a This is not her.
She only has, his wife only has sisters.
There's a male contemporary and there's a J or G connection that comes up. So if your dad's acknowledging the alcohol and or drugs or the consumption of how he got there,
Right.
I'm telling you there's another male contemporary that he's got. Husband, brother, cousin, friend. It's on the same level that he would be on. There's a J or G connection that comes up with this.
No,
Yes.
nothing I can think of. Yeah. I'm just want to make sure that it's me that you're talking.
That's my job, not yours.
Oh, okay.
First off, let's just make some generalizations. Fake psychics, they're essentially mentalists, and mentalists are stage magicians performing parlor tricks. This is why the most vocal and effective debunkers in human history have always been ex-magicians. Harry Houdini, James Randi being the most well-known, but there are some lesser-known ones that are interesting, such as the father of the scientific method for paranormal investigations, Harry Price. If you're not familiar with him, I will also link my video where I discuss the history of ghost hunting, and I talk about him in it as well. One of the most powerful techniques that mentalists and magicians use is psychological manipulation. Through persuasion, misdirection, and suggestion, a person can be manipulated to make them believe what the mentalist wants them to believe. For you to fully understand why John Edwards is a fake psychic and why people like me can see it clearly, I first need to teach you how these fake psychics do this, how they do their grift. So in this video, I'm going to be teaching you all of the techniques that these mentalists use to fake being a psychic so that you will better understand and recognize when you see a technique being used. That is when you want to question whether or not this person is even psychic, because if they're psychic, they shouldn't have to use a magic parlor trick technique to get the answers they're looking for. Art, we're going to get into hot reading.
Oui, oui, bien. Je hebt een vriendin, Julie de... Ja. Voor een huis dat van eigenaar gaat veranderen. 750.000 euro. Dat eigenlijk.
Oh my god. Oh man. Ah, dat vind je eng.
That was from Holy Kool-Aid's channel. Again, I don't know where he found that commercial from, but it is a very excellent example of what we're about to get into. So, hot reading. This technique is used by some television psychics in conjunction with cold reading. Clients may be scheduled ahead of time where they meet with an assistant or the mentalist themselves. And that is where the info on this subject is collected. Also, the subjects are often called sitters, so you hear me refer to them as that. The psychic may then be briefed on the information and told where the person will be sitting in the audience as well. So some things that psychics or, fake psychics have been caught doing in the past is they'll have things like audience cards. Even like faith healers were caught like with people's prayer cards filled out, and they were using the cards as a way to gather the information as to why this person was there. So things like that, like a questionnaire or something when the audience member comes in. As well, psychics have been caught with plants in the audience, like people sitting in different seats listening in and feeding information back. Also, background research is very common, especially when you're seeing these psychics do like smaller readings one-on-one or with a small group of people. They'll usually do background research. They can also do this because when you buy tickets to these shows, you're inputting your information. You put your name, your address, all that sort of stuff, and they'll do research on the person that bought the ticket, and then they'll know like which seat that they're sitting in too, and that also helps with their hot reading. So these are all examples of hot reading. And this is stuff that these psychics actually do. Don't put it past them. They actually go through and put this effort in to do this. I want to tell you about someone named Lior Suchard. Sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong, but he's a mentalist, and he uses a method where he tears paper up to get an answer, but he does it like before something happens in front of the cameras, so it makes him look amazing, like he's doing this magic ability. So I'm just going to show you an example of a mentalist here. The idea being that I want you to understand like the tricks that they do, that these people do. And this is like a mentalist magician or whatever, although he keeps saying that he's not a mentalist, but he's not claiming to be a psychic, but he's clearly a magician. But I just want to show you more examples of other things, other hot reading things that aren't just research, but like parlor tricks that some of these psychics and mentalists do. Also, this channel is The Wise Uncle, and I definitely recommend that you go and subscribe to him as well. He's quite knowledgeable and good at explaining this stuff.
How does a mentalist get the name? One is called center tear.
Over to the right to the half, and then you lift the back front up just like that. And you can see the word ends right here, so you're going to tear down very thin, making sure you do not hit that word, just like that. So you're going to be tearing off these pieces. Now just take them and hold them behind your right hand and spin the paper. So you're now going to tear over here, bring that piece behind, making sure not to hit the word, spin it, tear it again just like that. Now at this point, the center piece should be in the front. And now I slightly bend it with my thumb. I take my middle finger and push it back a little, so bringing a little opening. And now I ask them to open up their hand, and while I'm doing that, I'm flipping the piece open with my thumb and simply reading it. They hold open their hand, you tear it up and put it in their hand.
Now for the center tear demonstration.
You write a number between 58 and 100 inside and you close. But don't show me, do it over there please. If I destroy it, you still know the number? Whatever happens, don't tell me the number. Please, it's very important. Whatever happens, don't tell me the number. Please, it's very important.
If you happen to be interested in Lior Suchard already, I definitely recommend go checking out the whole series. I will, of course, always put links to everyone, all my references and everything will be in the references as well in the description. Cold reading is all about warming up the subject by telling them things that the reader shouldn't know.
I got interested in mind reading and fortune telling, fake fortune telling. And I got to know a lot of old fakes who had retired as millionaires, and they told me their secrets, how you do it. There are things that are called cold readings. Cold reading is you warm up the sucker by telling him things that he says, how could he ever know that, you see? You say, between the ages of 13 and 15, you had a great change in your life. It happens to everybody's life.
Without prior knowledge, a practiced cold reader can quickly obtain a great deal of information by analyzing the person's body language, age, clothing, fashion, hairstyle, gender, sexual orientation, religion, ethnicity, education, manner of speech, place of origin, etc. They can do a lot. They can figure out a lot is the point. And they can do this all with a cold reading line of questioning. Cold readings commonly employ high probability guesses, picking up on signals of whether the guesses are in the right direction or not. So they kind of read the body language of the person to figure out if they're in the right, frame and guessing correctly. So what happens when a psychic misses on their cold reading guesses?
And where are the 5 kids in the family?
Yeah, there's more than 5.
Tell me.
6.
So out of the psychic math now we know we do 5 minus 1, right? 5 are similar, 1's different.
Okay.
So how can I have 5 being similar, 1 being different?
Not sure.
Is it that 5 are living and 1's past? Or
No.
6 are living
There's
in 3
there's
past.
6 girls and...
how many total?
Sorry, there's 8 altogether in the siblings.
No.
Is that right? 9, sorry. Sorry.
9.
Thank you.
So there's
They're all
6,
sisters.
6
Okay.
girls and 3 boys have passed. Males.
So I need to, in my way, it's going to be 5 and 4, where 5 has something in common and 4 are different. So are 5 close in age, 4 further apart, or how many total passed?
3.
No. I don't know how to split it, but I know it's got to be 5 and 4.
It's okay, John Edward. I'm sure you'll find some way out of this situation.
And I know that somebody passed for something impacted to their head or something that affects their head, correct?
Oh, just dismiss it and move on. No one will notice, right?
The psychic will then emphasize and reinforce any accurate connections while quickly moving on from misguesses. Psychologists believe that this appears to work because of the Barnum Effect and due to confirmation bias within people. which we will get into the Barnum Effect and confirmation bias in a minute. But first, what's always interesting is a psychic throwing out numbers. The sitter then gives the answers, and often a lot of clips you'll see they start with 5. They use the most common numbers, names, letters, sounds like that. J for John, Mary, James, so forth. And throwing out like random names, random letters and sounds and numbers. And they do this quickly until someone picks up on it. And this is called the shotgun method. And let me show you an example.
Who had the issue with the brain? Aneurysm, brain tumor, Alzheimer's, or dementia?
I have somebody's father who's coming through, who's telling me to talk about, they either had lung cancer or they had something that I would say is being pulmonary related. And I feel like I'm supposed to talk about something with the anchor. I don't know if there's a connection to the anchor on the person's body or if there's a connection that somebody has the anchor with them, but I'm seeing an anchor in some way, but it's in that back section. There's a J or a G sounding name, either living or past, that's connected to them, and somebody that might have came together, like two people who came together, or they might be sitting next to each other, has somebody who passed from a, and they're telling me to talk about a W sounding name.
When they're doing these shotgun methods, they're also picking out common things. Like the number 5 is a very common number for, it could be 3 kids, 2 parents, 5 kids, family of 5 in some way. Sometimes people include their pets. 5 is like a good number for the size of a family. And as well, if they're talking about like relatives that were born like baby boomers, a lot of times they were born in groups of 5. So 5 is a common number that you'll hear thrown around. Another one that I'll just show you here is they pick the common names. So you'll see a lot of cold readings will start off with a J or James, because James is the number 1 male name, and Mary for a female. And so you'll hear a lot of them with their cold readings throw out M, an M name, Mary, Ma, Mur, things like that. James, J, like, and they just kind of throw that out because these are the most common numbers and common names. And that's what they're doing during the shotgun method until somebody bites. If you want to know more details about the statistics behind these common choices using like common popular names and numbers, I recommend you go watch the rest of Holy Kool-Aid's video where he actually breaks it down with all the math and everything. And I'm not going to include it all in here. You guys can go watch his video. Barnum Effect, aka warm reading. Well, hot readings gain knowledge beforehand, and cold reading uses cues in the moment. Warm readings use the Barnum Effect statements. These statements usually apply to everyone. The Barnum Effect is the tendency to accept certain information as true, such as character assessments or horoscopes, even when the information is so vague that it really is worthless. The Barnum Effect is a psychological manipulation, and when used properly, the mentalist or psychic comes across as a gifted person when they're really not. In reality, the statements fit nearly all of humanity, regardless of gender, personal opinions, age, culture, so forth. Let me give you some example Barnum Effect statements so you can understand some more about them. You have a great deal of unused capacity, which you have not turned into your advantage. You prefer a certain amount of change and variety and become dissatisfied and hemmed by restrictions and limitations. You pride yourself as an independent thinker and do not accept others' statements without satisfactory proof. At times, you have serious doubts as to whether you have made the right decision or done the right thing. Sometimes you're extroverted and sociable, while other times you're introverted and wary and reserved. While you have some personality weaknesses, you're generally able to compensate for them. Oftentimes, people apply the Barnum Effect just to general things, such as having a belief in horoscope and thinking that's going to be meaningful to your life. And I will say, like, I believe in astrology, so I totally understand, like, not everyone does. As well, things like thinking a magician's trick is able to happen because they're reading your mind. Some people relate to memes or jokes as if they're about themselves. Taking personality tests and agreeing with the results as if it's specific to you when they're very generalized. Feeling that a fortune teller, medium, or psychic knows all about your life. as well, reading a fortune cookie and saying, oh yeah, this really relates to me. We do it to ourselves with the Barnum Effect as well.
There's an older man that you associate with the initial B, an older man who's probably in your family or close to your family, and he's always suffered long term with a pain at the sort of back of his chest region, okay? But when you think of him, you always think of that thing that he does that makes you laugh.
The letter B, my dad's Brian.
You're generally outgoing, you make friends easily, that applies to number one as well. You are sociable, but just occasionally you feel really detached and insecure about yourself. It's almost as though you're kind of zooming out and watching yourself from a camera from above, something like that.
I'm on TV, so everybody thinks, oh, you're all chatty, this and that, but you know, when I get home, I'm really quite quiet.
You've got a scar. It's only a small scar, and it's not from an operation, it was from an accident you had years ago, and it's on your left leg in the middle.
I have got a scar on my left leg in the middle.
You make friends very, very easily, but you've actually got very few close friends, and part of the reason for that is because you tend to bottle things up, and you should let things go, and fairly recently, you feel you were betrayed by a friend. It's actually partly your own fault, but you still feel like you've been betrayed by a close friend.
All of those things.
You have a recurring dream where you're falling, like not falling, but almost flying down an escalator or some stairs. Right? This alternates, you only have it very sporadically, with a dream about being held underwater. You're struggling to catch your breath.
Well, it's kind of me, basically. I mean, that's me.
And that was Paul Zenon, and he's a former psychic turned mentalist, and he exposes the tricks of psychics. Confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is our tendency to take in information by looking for or interpreting things that are consistent with our existing beliefs. And we do this unintentionally. We don't really do this knowingly. It's just sort of something that becomes innate within us. It ends up resulting in a person ignoring information that is inconsistent with their beliefs, and they kind of get tunnel vision. So when it comes to psychics and mediums, if a person has very strong beliefs that the psychic is going to be able to talk to their deceased loved one, then when they go to these readings, the smallest little thing that a medium gets correct, they're going to then say that the whole reading was correct, and they're going to ignore all the misses and all the incorrect information because they're going in with a bias already that they are saying that the psychic is real and is going to be able to help me talk to said person. We see this a lot with people that come in and say, oh, you know, Sylvia Brown, she was real. Or John Edwards, he's real. You know, Sylvia Brown, she got the COVID prediction correct. Now, she predicted like 50 other diseases at the same time in that book, and she lived through a pandemic before. It wouldn't be hard for her to just be predicting multiple pandemics. It's just coincidence that that happened. There were other diseases that she also predicted that never happened. Not to mention the details of her COVID prediction, what she said the disease, how it's supposed to act. That isn't how COVID has been acting. But people who have a belief system that they just believe in psychics wholeheartedly without question, they're just going to look at that one little thing as an example and say all of her predictions are real and she's completely real because one thing she happened to coincidentally get correct. And that is the general gist of confirmation bias. We tend to do it to ourselves as well. Even there's believers out there who think that people that are skeptics, they believe that we've created a confirmation bias that we don't want to believe, therefore we never will believe. But a lot of them don't bother to listen to us when we keep telling them that we are believers and we aren't just doing a confirmation bias, like we aren't going tunnel vision with this stuff. We do analyze these things. But, you know, this is part of human nature. We just people tend to do this. We go tunnel vision on certain belief structures. So hopefully that all makes sense. If you have any questions about it as well, go ahead, throw it down in the comments.
Let's say that I strongly believe that eating a bag of chocolate every day is good for me. I will look for every piece of information that proves my belief that eating a bag of chocolate every day is good for me, while ignoring all of the information that disproves my idea. This can get especially tense with someone who does not believe that eating a bag of chocolate every day is good for me. You can probably see where this is going, and you've probably been in this situation where you're not arguing about a bag of chocolate, but something a lot more heated. So why does this happen? Well, it turns out that this is a result of our brains looking for more efficient ways to interpret information. Our brain looks at reality in a certain way and filters all information through that worldview. It is much easier to keep our current worldview than to keep changing it when new facts come along. So our brains have a bias towards maintaining what we already know and not shaking things up too much, as that makes it slower and more difficult to process information. The problem with this, obviously, is many times we ignore information that doesn't confirm what we already know in order to maintain our current worldview. Topics and beliefs that have a lot of emotion behind them can make people more prone to confirmation bias, especially if they identify with them.
The Rainbow Ruse. So a rainbow ruse tributes someone with opposing personality traits, and confirmation bias does the rest. I'll do a little explanation here from Holy Kool-Aid.
You sometimes feel an extroverted urge to burst out of your shell, but reservations frequently inhibit these feelings, and you're often comfortable allowing others to get the attention. How accurate is this description of you? You see, nobody is entirely introverted or entirely extroverted. If you're more extroverted, you'll think, wow, I'm extroverted and sometimes introverted. This statement applies to me. And if you're more introverted, you'll think, wow, I'm introverted and sometimes extroverted. This statement applies to me.
And that's why these statements work so well. As well, reading body language is not difficult to slip into a rainbow ruse reading too, and they usually do. The rainbow ruse is a crafted statement which simultaneously awards the subject a specific personality trait, as well as the opposite of the trait. With such phrase, a cold reader can cover all their possibilities and appear to have made an accurate deduction in the mind of the subject. Even though these statements are vague, the person who's being read still gets attracted and applies themselves to the statement. This technique is used because nearly everybody has experienced both sides of a particular emotion at some time in their lives. Let me give you some more examples of these rainbow ruse statements. Most of the time you're positive and cheerful, but there's been a time in the past when you were very upset. You are a very kind and considerate person, but when somebody does something to break your trust, you feel deep-seated anger. I would say that you're mostly shy and quiet, but when the mood strikes you, you can easily become the center of attention. So a cold reader can choose from a variety of personality traits and think of its opposite, then bind the two together in a phrase. They pretty much are vaguely linked by mood, time, or potential, and then they kind of see how the person reacts and go from there. When the mentalist or psychic gets a hit, they push it to get the sitter to open up more so they can create more predictions based on the feedback from the statements. Additionally, the psychic will try and create some questions that are yes/no only. So things like, you haven't been going out a lot lately, have you? By restricting the possible answers to either yes or no, it's easy for the psychic to prepare for how the follow-up response and follow-up questions should be. And this is something that John Edward does quite a lot if you watch some more of his readings. The person will respond with something like yes or no, and then the psychic says, I thought not, or I thought so, depending on the given answer, and it makes the psychic seem like they're more accurate. And this all relates back into the Barnum Effect. These rainbow ruse and Barnum Effect work together. They best work together and they pretty much overlap with one another. So in tandem, it gives a full experience of a very gifted psychic. Let me show you something from Penn and Teller.
And I get the sense that she's, for some reason or another, a little nervous.
The bereaved son doesn't respond to nervous, so Rosemary completely turns it around.
Which is so not like her, because she's really talkative and pushy and out there.
Nice save. Was she tall and short too?
Subconscious cold reading. Subconscious cold reading was discovered by New Age practitioner Carla McLaren. After performing many cold readings successfully, the psychic's ability becomes refined and they get better at performing these cold readings. Because of this, they begin to truly believe that they are psychic. They believe their success is because of their intuition and psychic ability. Essentially, they lie to the point that they convince themselves that they're psychic. They honestly believe they are. Some skeptics also call this transcendental temptation. Magic historian and occult investigator Milbourne Christopher has warned that transcendental choice may lead one unknowingly into a belief of the occult and a deterioration of reason. I do think that this is an interesting point to discuss. On top of people who are just naturally perceptive of human nature, usually empaths, they can just read people very quickly and easily. So does that make us psychic? Is that what psychic really is? This topic it does really interest me most. As all of you know, I did grow up in the circuit, and I even do tarot, I do astrology, numerology, and so forth for my friends. I don't take it too seriously, it's not a career or anything. And I do it for myself too. It's nothing special, it's not for money, but I've done this since I was very young. I was taught by my mom, so am I psychic, or is it just like my empathy? And I was trained by my mom at an early age to be like really perceptive as well to people and body language and so forth. So like, is this what psychic is? Are we really psychic, or are we just like convinced ourselves that we are? Are there dreams? Like, I've had dreams that seem like premonitions, and are they just normal dreams based on like movies, TV shows, and books that I've read? Or is there something actually to it? Is like me being raised in this, have I convinced myself that this is what I am? I fit into this area? I don't know. But anyway, let me know your thoughts below. It might warrant its own video as well. I do find the topic interesting because I do often wonder about this, and I do like kind of discussing this and sort of debating it. Healthy debate, healthy discussion about it. But all of this leads into the art of mentalism, and that's what we're going to talk about next. Mentalists.
Why are you shielding your right side? Are you hiding something?
Hiding? I'm not hiding anything.
Something. Your inside jacket pocket is making you nervous.
No.
What do you have in there?
What do you think? Oh, a wallet?
Well, why are you going to hide your wallet from us?
I don't. It's just a wallet. Hey, you can't do that.
It's a gray area.
Okay, there's nothing in there.
Well, looky here.
Callie Carlson. That's our girl, isn't it?
Okay, I have never seen that before in my life.
Really, has this wallet been out of your possession recently?
No, but I swear, I've never seen that before. I swear. I got a hotel room.
Okay, well, wait a second. He's our suspect.
It's like he's ours to me.
No, that's not fair.
It's fair, but 7 years old. Fair.
Hey, I don't need to be so grumpy. You got your wish. You wanted him to vanish? Vanished.
What is so funny? They took our suspect.
Oh, they took their suspect.
Morris is on you. So the photos in his wallet.
I took it from Callie's apartment for just such an occasion.
So mentalists, they're the combination of all these things. They're combined as well with parlor tricks, showmanship, and just really every trick in the book. Mentalists use all the techniques and are very talented, and they come across as very powerful people who can even control minds sometimes too. When it comes down to it, mentalism is deductionism, body language, logic deduction, observation, and psychology, as well as a little manipulation thrown in there. Oh, and don't forget the stage magic as well. The best mentalist out there right now, in my opinion, for a skeptic to do a deep dive on is Darren Brown. He actually does a lot of debunking and things like that too. So I definitely recommend you go check him out. With James Randi gone, like I said, I do hope that Darren fully takes on the role of debunking, as he has already been debunking psychics and mentalists and things like that. People who are pushing lies that it's not just parlor tricks, essentially. He goes around and debunks them. And he has a show as well that's on YouTube that you can go check out his channel. Mentalists try to set up a sense of cooperation between themselves and the subject or the sitter, such as asking them to think in their minds there's something that they want to convey to the mentalist. If the techniques do not lead to answers, the mentalist will just say something like, oh, today is an off day, or spirit isn't here, and the strength of the connection isn't there, things like that, to kind of like, overlook their mistake in not being able to pick up enough. So with this, maybe you can understand a little bit about how John Edward works the audience, right? He'll say things like, why am I seeing this? Or I feel like I'm supposed to be talking about this. He's kind of combining everything into like a sort of mentalist kind of trick. He'll talk about different sounding names. He'll quickly move on to new topics and manipulate audiences like this as well, waiting for a bite until something works out. But he's able to manipulate people too. And, diverting the topic and diverting the person when he gets something wrong is also a really important thing that psychics do, especially these ones that do these big group medium readings. Sitter misremembering. I had an example of one of Darren Brown's shows, but unfortunately all of his content, he has copyright claims, so I can't show you any clips. I definitely still recommend you check out his channel, but I'm just going to describe to you this example. Essentially, this woman had a reading, and the guy was doing a cold reading. He said that her mother had 5 children in the family. Well, he said the number 5, and she associated it with 5 children. And that was the only thing that he got correct in the reading. But after he left, Darren and the woman were talking a bit, and she's like, no, actually, it was 6 children. I miscounted in the moment. And that's just an example of sitter misremembering is, you tend to realize after the fact that only one thing was right, or maybe nothing was right at all, because they do a lot of misdirection during these readings. So, sitter misremembering. In the moment, sitters feel like the readings that they got were highly successful, but after the dopamine wears off and after the pizzazz wears off, they think on it, or if they choose to think on it, they might notice that things weren't as successful as they originally thought during the reading. The human brain attempts to make connections that then make it appear that the psychic was correct when they really weren't. And psychics take advantage of this for sure. And like doing things like shotgunning and going really quickly is a good way for us to misremember things that happened during the readings as well. People don't notice or remember the misses if the techniques are done well with a good psychic using these techniques, a fake psychic. As we've seen, magic is an art form. It relies on technique, skill, and deception. And while it's easy to get caught up in the mystique and wonder of it all, it's essential to remember that there's logical explanations behind all of these little tricks that they employ. This whole video, I'm trying to teach you how fake psychics do this, so that you can just watch one of these fake psychics and apply this knowledge and realize that they are just doing these techniques and they're not real psychics. So now that you have learned about cold reading, hot reading, warm reading, all these different things, rainbow statements, the Barnum Effect, now let's take a look at John Edwards again. We're going to look at his controversies, but any sort of clips that I show you, any footage that I show you in this video, apply what I just taught you about how people be fake psychics, like the techniques, apply it and take a look at what they're doing in their videos. And you can see clearly that they're using these techniques. If they're a real psychic, they don't need to use these techniques. Let's go back and revisit John Edward and his controversies that he has faced throughout his career. John Edwards' controversies. Edwards' methods rely heavily on confirmation bias. People who swear by him give weight to information that confirms their existing beliefs, but they ignore or downplay the contradictory evidence. This can create the illusion that Edwards is providing accurate information even when he's not. And that being said, there's multiple controversies that followed Edwards during his career. But this didn't deter the majority of his followers. This always ends up happening with psychics. Unfortunately, outing these fakers never really gets believers to see the issues of the psychic. And all we can keep doing is trying, and every once in a while you'll get someone to realize what's really going on. And that's all we can kind of do is try to gather a person at a time, even though it's small numbers that get convinced. Let me walk you through some of the most notable controversies that John Edwards has faced. The 9/11 special.
And you would predict that John Edwards, within 4 months, would announce a show where he was going to speak to the dead of 9/11. And we said when he announces that, all of you will feel terrible and miserable because you helped push John Edwards on the American public. John Edward on the American public. And Keller and I will feel okay because at least we tried to give a skeptical point of view. And we thought when we gave him that speech that we were exaggerating in order to clarify. And sure enough, a few months later, you may not remember this, but a few months later, John Edward, the talking to the dead guy, actually announced that he was going to do a TV special where that was going to pretend to talk to the dead people who were killed in 9/11. And he then pulled it back because apparently the spirits told him that was a dubious taste.
So this 9/11 special, it was quite the disaster. Very soon after the September 11th attacks, 2001, Edward began filming a special where he met with relatives of the victims with the intention of communicating with those who passed away during that horrible day. According to John Edwards' autobiography, he denies ever knowing that the people on these episodes were families of 9/11 victims, even though he does say that the spirits told him to walk back the special, but then he denies ever knowing that that's what it was. I don't know. And also, the trade magazine Broadcasting and Cable sent a story that said Psychic Plans WTC Victim Show on the daily subscription fax. It was sent to news, media, and TV station executives on October 25th, 2001. Like, it's like a month. They really just hopped on that immediately. Very not okay. Steve Rosenberg, who is the president of domestic television at Studios USA, that's the company that distributed Edwards' show, he had tentatively scheduled the special to be broadcast during the November sweeps, but news of the taping sparked national outcry. Everyone was very upset by this. Both the Sci-Fi Channel and Crossing Over with John Edward production office were flooded with phone calls, emails, etc., expressing outrage at the exploitation of the national tragedy. And a lot of people said it was just extremely tasteless, and it was just in search of ratings, and that's all that they were after. Rosenberg, the president, initially ignored the criticism, insisting the programming would go on as scheduled, but within hours he terminated his plans, which that's the whole thing. Like, John was saying that the spirits told him not to do this and that he terminated the show, but the president terminated it after a lot of public backlash. I wonder when that South Park episode was, because remember that South Park episode said that he was the biggest D word in the world? I wonder if it came around this time. Let me check. All right, it says it was season 6, episode 15. When did South Park start? South Park started in 97, so season 6, that was probably like 2003. Okay, well, it was after that, but timing would have actually made sense as to why South Park also did that episode that really flamed him too. But it looks like they did it a couple years later. James Randi. Choosing the first reading from a 2-hour tape of edited shows as a sample, skeptic and magician James Randi found that just 3 of the 23 statements made by Edward were confirmed as correct by the audience member being read. The 3 statements that were correct were also trivial and nondescript. Essentially, James took a look at a recording before it was edited and found that John he wasn't even a good cold reader. He did really poorly. And somebody else also attended one of his tapings and found the same thing. We'll get into that too. But I did notice, because I watched John when I was like really young when he first came out, and I was like, oh, this guy's horrible. And like, he was just a really bad cold reader too. And now I watch him now and I'm like, oh, he's improved a lot. You can tell his skills improved, not as a psychic, but just as an illusionist, as a mentalist. But let's take a look at what James Randi had to say.
Here is John Edward, for example, who speaks with the dead. The guy on the Sci-Fi Channel and now syndicated in something like 380 stations around the United States on TV. This guy says he speaks with dead people. Oh, really? Well, we did a bit of investigation on John Edward. And I was sent a videotape by, I think it was Inside Edition. And they said, we'll allow you to choose a part of this videotape to make comments on. And I said, well, to be perfectly fair, I will take, say, the first minute of it, so that I won't select through for something that proves my point. And so I just put the videotape machine on, and Andrew Harder stood at my side, and we watched the opening of the show. We only used the first 45 seconds. That was quite sufficient for our needs. In 45 seconds, confronted with a gentleman sitting in the audience with his wife, the gentleman who said that he wanted to contact the spirit of his deceased father, he knew that much, and the audience knew that much. He took 45 seconds to make 23 guesses. That's more than one guess every 2 seconds. You have to really speak quickly to do that. Transportation business, I see something about a train, there's a uniform involved, and they say, no, it goes on and on like this, very quickly. We slowed it all down, and we played it back, transcribed it. Now, during that 45 seconds, from the beginning to the end, the man started to cry. The tears came down his face. He began to sob, and he was doing this kind of a thing, and his wife had her arm around him, and he turned to her, and he says, that's him, that's him. 23 guesses. 20 of them were wrong. The 3 that were right, now that's 87%, friends. If your kid came home from school with 13 out of 100 on a test paper, you'd be alarmed, wouldn't you? But apparently not with John Edward, because that's enough. They don't need it to be any more than that. But what were the 3 that were right out of the 23? A, this man is dead. He's an older man. And there's a younger man connected with him. Yeah, the guy sitting right there in the chair. Those were the only 3 things that were right. He had nothing significant to tell this man, and yet this man was reduced to tears and sobbing. That's how easy it is to be what we call in the trade a cold reader. That's the technique. It's a game of 20 questions, really. Now, we've challenged endless number of times John Edward to come for the $1 million prize.
Cold reading abilities. James Underdown of the Independent Investigative Group, IIG, attended a crossing over show in November 2002. And he actually said, and I quote, "There were no indications of anyone I saw collecting information. None of his readings contained the kind of specific information that would raise an eyebrow of suspicion. John Edward was a bad cold reader. He too struggled to get hits and in one attempt shot off nearly 40 guesses before finding any significant targets." This goes back to what I was saying before. When he first started, I remember watching him and I'm like, I don't understand how this guy got a TV show. Because immediately I was like, this guy's bad at this. But watching him now, he's very much improved. But I've noticed that he's incorporating hot reading techniques. He's been doing research on people that he's reading now. And he's incorporating some other techniques. But when he first started, he was not very good. I don't really know how he got a show. I guess it was just from that book that he wrote, which is how Sylvia got popular too, is writing books. So. But Underdown, he also claimed that Edward's apparent accuracy on television may be inflated by the editing process, which, yeah, that's what it comes down to. After watching the broadcast version of the show he had attended, and then he watched the recorded version, right? Underdown attributed a great deal of Edward's accuracy to the editing. And Underdown said, and I quote, "Edward's editor fine-tuned many of the dead ends out of a reading riddled with misses." Now, of course, John Edward denied all this, and he said in response, and I quote, "People are in the studio for 8 hours, and we have to edit the show for time, not for content. We don't try to hide the misses." So Edward denies ever using hot or cold reading techniques, and he denies editing out bad misses. He pretty much saying that he gets hits all the time throughout his taping, which just isn't true. We got 2 instances of it here. Dateline. In another incident, Edward was said to have used foreknowledge to hot read in an interview on the television show Dateline.
Something about Anthony? Are you waving like that's me? That's you? Good.
4 of all people, Dateline cameraman Tony Pagano, one of 2 cameramen shooting our story. John Edwards zeroes in on the fact that Tony's father has died.
Did you not see Dad before he passed? Had you either been away or had been distant?
Yeah, I was away.
Okay, because he's making me feel like we need to move past this. Was he a Yankees fan?
No, he'd die again if he heard that.
And he's telling me to acknowledge he found the ring. I don't know what this means.
I had a ring that was given to me. I only wore one piece of jewelry beside my wedding ring. And when my dad died, the last time I saw him in the coffin, I took that ring off and put it on his hand.
John Edward had made it a point to avoid any contact before that night's session. But remember this footage of Edward dancing? Tony was the cameraman and shot this just hours before the group reading.
You met Tony before, though, right? Earlier that day? Yeah.
They not only had met, but Tony told John Edward a critical piece of information during the shoot.
You'd spoken to him. Were you aware that his dad had died before you did this reading? I think earlier in the day he had said something. And that makes me feel like, that's fairly significant. I mean, he knew that he had a dead relative, and he knew it was the dad. Okay. So that's not some energy coming through. That's something you knew going in. You knew his name was Tony, and you knew that his dad had died, and you knew he was hit the road. Right? Then that's a whole lot of thinking you got me doing that. Like I said, I react to what's coming through, but I see, hear, and feel. I interpret what I'm seeing, hearing, and feeling, and I define it. He raised his hand, it made sense to him, great. But a cynic would look at that and go, hey, he knows it's the cameraman, he knows it's Dateline, wouldn't that be impressive? He'd get the cameraman to cry. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So as you can see, he met with the cameraman beforehand. I suppose when he wasn't getting hits off the audience, he must have just dipped into his memory of the conversation he had with the cameraman so that he could save face because it was going to be aired on TV after all. And when he's grilled about it, he's absolutely no answer to explain himself. Look at the reaction on his face. I think that says enough for me as to the way he actually is. John Oliver. In a 2019 segment of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, Edward and other prominent TV psychics were actually featured on the show. Several clips of Edward attempting cold reading and failing to get hits were included, as well as a clip of Edward telling an audience member, and I quote, "I can only tell you what they're showing me, and he's calling your mother a B word." Yeah.
No. Is your mom not nice? Oh, my mom is the best. Because I can't tell you what you want to hear. I can only tell you what they show me. And if he's calling your mother a bitch, I'm going to pass it on.
So, of course, John Oliver criticized the predatory nature of the psychic industry, as well as the media for promoting these psychics, because this convinces viewers that psychic powers are real and enables neighborhood psychics to prey on grieving families. John Oliver was actually very outspoken about these fake psychics. This is the first time that he said something. He also brought up a whole thing about Sylvia Brown, too. He was very much against the way that they were being glorified. Oliver said, and I quote, "When psychic abilities are presented as authentic, it emboldens a vast underworld of unscrupulous vultures more than happy to make money by offering an open line to the afterlife, as well as many other BS services." I'm going to end off the controversy section with a little clip show video I found on someone's YouTube channel where they gathered up a bunch of clips. I edited it down even more just to give you a little concise. I thought it had some good clips and I kind of threw them together. So let's play it now. After this, we're going to do a thought exercise by looking at John Edwards' reading that he had with Dr. Phil. So hang on for the next part.
Everything I tell people is positive and gives them hope. How does that make me?
Because the big questions in life are tough. Why are we here? Where are we from? Where are we going? But if people believe it, liars like you, we're never going to find the real answer to those questions. You aren't just lying, you're slowing down the progress of all mankind.
Look, people have the right to be skeptical. I really hear voices in my head.
Yes, we all hear voices in our heads. It's called intuition. Get over yourself and tell my friend it's just for fun.
Look, what I do doesn't hurt anybody. I give people closure and help them cope with life.
No, you give them false hope and a belief in something that isn't real.
The John Edward Show is not liable for opinions and materials given for entertainment purposes only.
There's a younger male energy in this section that makes me feel like this would be son, nephew, grandson. There is a Cancer connection that comes up here. Does this make sense? Where's Robert? Robbie? Rob? Where's the R?
I'm sensing an A. Does your name begin with an A? No. A B? No. C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Peter! My name's Peter! Is your name Peter? Wow, you are some kind of sorcerer.
So there are techniques that hucksters and fraud people use. You're saying you never use that? Never. Let me ask you this. Did you, in your show, do you edit out parts where it doesn't make you look good as Time Magazine accused?
You can literally call I'm saying you literally speak to
You read the piece that said that you do.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't do that.
They edited for time. People edit for time. But if they took things out that were inaccurate, they took out things that were more accurate.
Oh, man. I can't believe I got fooled by that.
You see better on TV?
Yeah. They must edit the shows down on television to only show him getting most of the right answer.
It's like I said, our next video on the next psychic video, that is, aren't necessarily week after week. We're going to be discussing Tyler Henry. And I think he's a good lead-in because John Edward actually backs Tyler Henry in, what was this article, 2016. And he says he's the most awesome medium around. So this will be a good segue into Tyler Henry, who he's a medium for the stars. And I'm sorry, but these people can be Googled quite easily.
Information he was using came from fabricated Facebook posts that were planted by a group trying to catch him.
Maria. Do you know who that is? Because he's bringing up Maria. Now, I don't want to scare you, but RPG, have you had your heart checked? So your dog is here. Must be your dog.
And did it destroy Thomas John's career? No, within a year he had his own TV show called Seatbelt Psychic, which was promoted by massive celebrities. This is a huge part of why this stuff is so hard to end, because the media constantly reintroduces it back into the news cycle for the simple reason that we found a real psychic is always going to make a more compelling headline than psychics still aren't real. The same way Sylvia Brown got her claws into America in the 80s, modern psychics are being promoted in an identical fashion. But now there's an even more dangerous evolution of this. A new kind of celebrity psychic, but ones with the backing of gigantic multinational media corporations. If you want to see this, look no further than Tyler Henry.
All right, and that clip was from Super Eye Patch Wolf. I will, again, link the videos, but I think that is a good little, leading into our next video, but also kind of summarizing that we're kind of dealing with this. This is never going to end. So, and why can't we ever stop them? I mean, it kind of gives a summary right there in that video. The world of psychic mediums is a murky and contested one, with opinions about John Edwards' abilities sharply divided. While he remains one of the most prominent and influential figures in the field, it's clear that his methods are far from infallible, and the debate around his abilities, it's going to continue to rage on throughout the years. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on John Edwards and the world of psychic mediums in the comments below. Please, let me know, leave a comment, and just, anything that you want to kind of discuss about it. I enjoy thoughtful discussion about these things. Also, keep an eye out for the next video. Like I said, once that video is done, it'll probably be like a few weeks out, but once it's done, I'll end up linking it to this video, just like I'm going to link this John Edwards video to the Sylvie video now that this is done as well. So once it's ready, it'll be linked. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on bell notifications, because then you'll be notified when I release new videos. And again, if you're new here and haven't caught the last video in this series, like I said, the Sylvia Brown one, I'll link it to this video as well so you can check it out. Your support means the world to me, so even liking helps grow the channel. But speaking of which too, I'd also like to thank our lovely members and patrons who have been helping out with the channel. So I'll throw their names up on the screen here as well. But I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, and just in general participating in the channel. And for those who've stuck around to the end of this video, part 2 of this game is a question. Do you love or hate pineapple pizza? Let's see how many people are still here at the end of this video with that question, which is always one that creates quite the debate. All right, folks, that's a wrap, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a good rest of your week.
You won't want to believe in it so much. I know you do. You find comfort in the thought that your loved ones are floating around trying to talk to you, but think about it. Is that really what you want? To just be floating around after you die having to talk to this? Well, we need to recognize this stuff for what it is. Magic tricks.